So I'm listening to a book, and I came across like a really interesting part that I wanted to share that hit me pretty hard. Um, so it's about the idea of forgiveness and how it's a really hard concept for a lot of people, me included. But reframing it to understand that forgiveness is not for the other person or for the other people, it's for you. And it is in no way excusing the harm done or the thing they did that was unacceptable. It's not excusing it. It's saying for yourself that forgiveness is the choice that you want to make for your own well-being. And how realizing and how this was really beneficial for the author and has been really helpful for me, realizing and understanding that the person that did hurt you in whatever capacity that was, envisioning them as a small child before whatever happened to them to make them the way they were, and then it trickling to you based on whatever your experience was, the thing that needed forgiveness, right? And that part really struck me even before I was a mom, like the idea of it. So I believe the movie's called Rocket Man. It's the Elton John story that Taron Egerton plays him. And there's this flashback part where his adult self is seeing his child self. And there's a line that is repeated throughout the movie that then the little version of him says to his big self, and it's really profound, and then they hug. And it makes me cry every single time. So for me, it's been really, inner child work. I posted something about it recently on Facebook. Accessing and listening to your inner child. And I think a lot of people balk at that. However, especially for me, dealing with suppression of, again, I don't know if it's events, if it's feelings, if it's whatever it may be, right? Like that in neurofeedback has been part of my brain that's been really resistant to change, because that's something that served me, obviously. But now facing it and saying, I am unafraid of whatever is here. I am unafraid of this. I'm not going to procrastinate and turn away and get too busy and overschedule to avoid. I'm not going to avoid anymore. I'm going to look straight at it and say, I am not afraid. So you tell your brain that. Your brain believes you. Your brain believes what you tell it. So this forgiveness element of, she had also mentioned, the author was talking about how oftentimes the person that we really, at like the core of it, we need to forgive is ourselves, and a lot of shame and regrets are at ourselves. And then like self-compassion comes in a lot within this kind of work, but simplifying it down to seeing someone who has wronged you as their 3-year-old self, their 5-year-old self, and then you as your 5-year-old self, and smiling at them and them smiling back at you, like knowing that we are all creatures who are affected by our circumstances and our surroundings, and like how that affects us and what it does to our brains and how that manifests and the choices that we make. This takes nothing away from the culpability and boundaries you may need to set around someone or people that have done something. So it's like there's no excusing events and things that have happened. The forgiveness, again, is for you, not for them. But having a softening around my grudges or frustration or anger in order for me to let that go, because it's toxic to myself. Holding on to that resentment is something that will fester within you, and it's like poisoning yourself and expecting the other person to feel it, right? So it's like, I will set the boundary that I need and it'll be honored and respected. That's the option. That's what it will be. And that needs to be reinforced. And boundary work is something I've really had to work on myself. That is difficult, especially when you're not used to setting them. And you are a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist like myself, and you're used to being the caretaker and give. It feels very selfish at first to set boundaries, but it's not. It's healthy, and it's something that everyone should do for themselves. Again, not for the people that the boundaries need to get set with. It's for you. And you deserve that. You are worthy of that. You are enough, just in general. But that inner child work of envisioning my 5-year-old self and then my adult self interacting with my 5-year-old self, talking to, in that guided meditation about inner child work that I posted on Facebook, was you look at your 5-year-old self, you see her or him, pardon me, you go to them, you hold their little hands, you stroke their hair, you hug them, and you ask them, is there anything you need to tell me? And then you just listen. You just sit and breathe, and something will come to you. And then you turn it, and the child asks, is there anything you need to tell me? So you then have a moment to express something to that inner child, that I know you might feel scared. I know you don't feel heard. I'm here. You're safe. I love you. You know, like it's, and then it had you go to, you're walking in the forest and you get to a point where you see your 11-year-old self and you have that same interaction with them. And it's very transformative. There are definite kind of blockages because I feel like a lot of people will be like, that's woo-woo nonsense. That's silly. I don't need to do that. You know what I mean? It's like there's definite people kind of get up on their haunches about it. However, I urge people who's that, like that's their reaction to it, to look at that reaction for a second and be like, why? Why do I feel that way? Am I not wanting to hear what the child me has to say? Am I not wanting to say anything to my energy? Like what's the block there? What's the disconnect? And that is absolutely something that might want to be explored. Maybe not just by yourself, maybe with a therapist, maybe with, either way. But it's been really important for me. And so then how that circles back to forgiveness is forgiving your younger self, forgiving yourself now for remembering that you're doing the best you can with the information you have in the moment for whatever part of life that fits within, right? Whatever you may feel shame or regret around, knowing that the forgiveness lies within, I was doing the best I could with what I had accessible at that time. And that's where, for me, it bleeds over into a great way into people that I do have a lot of built up resentment and anger toward in scenarios that have gone down in my life where I feel wronged, right? Envisioning that person as a vulnerable child themselves before all the whatever happened in their lives made it to be their reactions to whatever it is the way they are. Seeing them, knowing that we're honestly all that small person within us. Like, we're that small child who came up with whatever their core beliefs are about the world and themselves based on what they were taught in their environment. And then, like, as an adult, we put layers and layers on top of that. That person is not gone at all. Like, I was told this in very visual. So, like, feeling like and understanding that, like, layers of to build you up into the adult was built on top of that. Like, that's your foundation. That's your core beliefs about yourself and the world. And those don't go away. So stripping it back to that and accessing that part of yourself, allowing yourself to, it's just really, it's transformative is really the only word I can think of to say it. And so now there's another layer of accessibility for me being a mom and being able to see, like, I have a picture of myself as, I think I'm 4 in the picture, and seeing that little version of me and seeing Olivia and seeing the comparisons and knowing that, like, and we do, like, there's a lot of similarities, like, in, like, features, like how we look. And so it's knowing that as a mother, as someone who is so loving and caring to their child, to know that that gets to transition and that should transition to myself as well. And it makes it that much more easy and accessible for me to say, like, what would I say to Olivia? The self-compassion element, I need to say that. I need to be willing to say that to myself as well. I'm worth that. You are worth that. And it's emotional, it's difficult, but it's the work, it's the hard work of understanding yourself and why you are the way you are, you know, stripping it down to the simplistic element of what are my core beliefs has been really interesting. And it's something that manifests itself in different ways throughout your life, in your actions, in your choices, in lots of different ways. And understanding and then realizing as an adult, if that core belief that no longer serves me and I no longer believe it, if I don't know what it is, I can't then take steps to change it, right? And come up with a new belief then that I reinforce. So I think that understanding that we are all flawed, fallible human beings, and that, again, this is in no way excusing or not saying you shouldn't hold, you should hold people accountable for what happens, right? And that's where those boundaries come in. But again, for your own peace, the forgiveness element. And for me, it was accessible to understand that we all started the same way, and then how life and circumstances, events, our environment, the influence of those around us, like, that is formative. And that, like, if I could envision the small 5-year-old version of anyone in my life, family, friends, people, what would I tell them? What would I hold their beautiful little face, and what would I say? What would I want to say to them? What would holding them be like? What would that feel like? What would they need to hear from me? And I think it's super interesting, because when you try to think about it logically in this, like, analytical part of your brain, you overthink it. Like, we're the metacognition, thinking about thinking. We're sentient beings that are able to do that. Like, the animals don't do that. So that's when we overthink, and then you get in your head about it. Whereas if you just go from your feelings, from your gut, what that says, like, your unconscious mind will answer. Like, the answers will happen if you let yourself hear it, by being still, by being open to it. So this very well may not work for everyone. I think that it's definitely worthwhile to investigate for yourself, and if you're interested in that guided meditation with inner child work, it's like maybe 15 minutes long. And it's really, really, really interesting. I'm going to end this with some affirmations, because I need to do mine today, and I think they're really beneficial for everyone. So repeat after me if you would like. I am strong. I am kind. I am smart. I am brave. I am courageous. I am worthy. I am enough. I am loved. I am safe. Never hurts to throw a good deep breath in there. I love you too. I love you. You are doing the best you can with what you have right now. And then the challenge, I think, for all of us is, once we know better, it's our job to do better, right? So let's all do better.